Hello, hi, welcome to the vlog. Got a mint tea on the go. What are you brewing? What we're going to talk about today? Well, the first thing we're going to talk about is the fact that it's this weird time of year for any vlogger who can't be asked to put up lights all the time. The sun is out, but in a minute it's going to go behind a faint wisp of cloud in the air, and rather than just be slightly dimmer, I'm going to be plunged into darkness. You and I are going to make it through that. And the other thing I want to talk about is I was listening to a podcast the other day, can you believe? It was all about decluttering, and the guy mentioned that if you are someone who struggles to make decisions, perhaps slightly ADHD, then decluttering can seem like an impossible / very emotional task. So inspired I was, apparently, by this podcast that I decided to test the phenomenon later in the week when I started a mass cancellation of a bunch of subscriptions that I've let spiral out of control. It's kind of an extension of what we were talking about the other day, the whole analog thing where I'm trying to be more intentional about all things and just letting a bunch of subscriptions roll over month after month whether or not I've actually watched anything on them. It feels like the opposite of intentional. Much better to only subscribe because there's something I'm actually watching rather than because I forgot to cancel the free trial, you know? And if there's something I really want to watch, I'll just get the subscription back. That's kind of how they're supposed to work, isn't it? That's perfect logic and reason, Hastings. Fantastic. It actually sounds like quite a positive thing. Tell me why then. Explain yourself. I cancelled Disney Plus, closed my laptop, and instantly burst into tears. Turns out that whole emotional decluttering thing was bang on the money, because once you've made your decision, there's this huge release of tension or energy or something, I don't know, but the floodgates were open, and every time I thought I'd got it under control, centered myself, it would happen again. Floods. Like the rain coming back in April, as though the weather has seen you enjoy a couple of days of sunshine and wants to stop you before you get any ideas. So on roughly the fourth wave of tears, I got to thinking that this might be linked to something other than the fact that I never quite got around to watching Moon Knight. Well, here's my working theory. Here is what Fraser Crane would say if I called into his show. He'd say, Dan, I'm listening. I think you're not just cancelling subscriptions. I think you're letting go of who you thought you were. Oh. We'll get into that on the other side, because first I want to send a little thank you to this week's video sponsor, Surfshark. Surfshark is an old friend of the channel. They're a virtual private network, a VPN if you're nasty. And I've been using it for a good while now to make my internet experience a whole lot better by keeping myself and my data safe. It's a treacherous world out there, and as I've noticed over the past year or so, I need to go out and about to do my best, most focused work. I'm using a lot of public Wi-Fi, and obviously public Wi-Fi is a goldmine for hackers and wrong-uns. So by using Surfshark, I can mask my IP address and encrypt my data to keep it all tucked up and cozy. And I also use it to change my virtual location. Obviously, when I'm in a bit of a funny little place, turbulent times, I need to settle my brain by watching one of my many comfort shows. But the constant streaming nonsense means that all of my favourite shows are here one day and gone the next. So by changing my virtual location, I can allow myself access to content libraries from all over the world. Chuffed! And to put a cherry on top, Surfshark does not track, monitor, or store anything you do online, so you're free to get on with what you need to get on with, and you can use it across multiple devices. If you'd like to give Surfshark a try, I have a deal for you. You can get 4 months extra just by using the code DanielJ at surfshark.com/DanielJ, and there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can give it a go risk-free and see if it works for you. Thank you so much to Surfshark for sponsoring this video, and most importantly for letting me watch Bake Off in peace. Now, I know what you're thinking. Dan, Fraser sounds a little bit dramatic. You sound a little bit dramatic. Well, you know what? You've met me, all right? If you're surprised, that's on you. I wish I could do small thinking. I wish I could blithely brush past the pull to be existential, but this is how I'm wired, all right? We're just gonna have to go with it. So, what do I think was going on? Well, in 2018, we're going back, there was this big wave of video essayists on this website. We're talking Nerdwriter, Lindsay Ellis, Jenny Nicholson, all of that, and I loved these videos. I drank them up. We go into various lockdowns, we're all stuck at home. I'd previously been the kind of creator who thrived on being out and about, so I thought I'd try my hand at making that kind of video essay. Like, I'm a passionate person, right? I like talking about the things that I love. It kind of naturally fits. So I spent the next few years trying to find my voice and style within this video essay milieu. Like, what's my angle on this style of video? And then I crashed headlong into 3 unshakable truths. The first is what we'll call the Ratatouille principle. The main villain in that movie is Anton Ego, who is a restaurant critic. And when he finds himself so utterly humbled by Remy's food, he writes a review that is so magnificent, so beautifully written, so piercing and to the point. I'm sacking off my evening plans and watching Ratatouille again. It begins by talking about the life of a critic, how we thrive on negative criticism, which is fun to write and to read. spot on. Never was a truer word spoken. Think about Mark Kermode, one of the legendary film critics in the UK. If you're a film fan, how many of his absolutely loved these movies can you list? How many of his big rants about how this movie was awful can you name off the top of your head? And I started finding it with my videos. If I was gushing earnestly about something that I loved, it wasn't going to do nearly as well as like a wry and sarcastic take on something that I didn't enjoy. Thing bad sells, which kind of goes against who I am as a person. I know I can get a little bit sarky and we like to be catty on the channel, but honestly, deep down, I'm an optimist. I'm always looking for the good. I go into every movie or book or TV show or whatever, I go in with 5 stars, right? And I let the movie dictate how I respond to it. Oh, that thing there didn't quite work for me, I'll take a star away. Oh my God, it came back, I'll give it another one. Meanwhile, I think others go into a movie and they sit there going, go on then, impress me. Which brings me to unshakable truth 2. I don't really like other people's opinions. I'm in a toxic relationship with Reddit at the moment. I've lost count of the number of times that I've rage deleted the app just because I've seen a combination of the most banal and smug circle jerk comments saying that a wrestling match sucked or a trailer for a TV show wasn't book accurate enough or whatever. And this does translate to real life as well, because I was at the film festival where I had been going for a few years as a film lover, trying to gather info and find, recommendations of stuff that I think you're gonna love. But between screenings, I'd be having a coffee and people watching, and I would see a little group of bros chatting away, and they would say stuff or share a thought like, I thought the anachronisms were really underdeveloped. And then they would look around the circle, hoping to find someone who would be like, yeah, wow, what a brilliant point, clap on the back. In the play Don Juan in Soho, there is a monologue, which I have done on this channel before, and it's a big rant about how vacuous culture has become, and it finishes with the line, where's the poetry, where's the soul? And I lately find myself unironically screaming at the 6th Instagram reel of a wannabe influencer begging for followers, or a guy whose content is then literally sat in a box in the corner of the screen while some clip from a prestige TV show plays above and he's going, where's the soul? Which is not to say that there's no room for criticism or sharing your view on a piece of art. I mean, absolutely, that is our right. That's why we make it, right? We make stuff so that people feel something, and the ideal dream is that they go off to the pub afterwards and talk all about it and share what they thought. And I'd go so far to argue that good criticism is an art in and of itself. There are some people who are cut out to do it, right? These are the people who are students of culture. They're experts. They understand audiences and what makes a person connect to the thing that they're watching. They put the art within its proper context and they explain what does or doesn't work for them personally, what might and might not work for audiences, and I love listening to them. But while I was moonlighting as one of them on one of the various podcasts with co-hosts who I adore, who are precisely that kind of person, the ones who are supposed to be critics, I ran headlong into unshakable truth number 3. I was building a life where I'd spend it talking about the things I love instead of doing what I love, and that simply would not do. I think the reason was because we've always known I wanted to be a performer, and I was trying to carve my own path and find a way in, and I thought, hey, well, I'm adjacent, maybe I could sneak in around the back door, but it didn't work, so I went to school, blah blah blah, we've done that bit, just book a job already, put your high kicks where your mouth is. Which brings me, with a dead leg, to the subscription cult. Lately, I haven't been going to the movies much at all. It makes sense, I've been in a very theatre mode. So I cancelled a few memberships and subscriptions that I'd been holding on to because I'm in this weird limbo between being a critic and being an artist, where I'm trying to figure out how to keep being the Dan Layton on YouTube while not stepping on the toes of the Dan Layton who's tapping at the window of Audition Room. That said, I've known I've wanted to move on and into being a new type of creator for a while now. Still making and sharing the things I love and still being Dan Layton on YouTube because I unfortunately can't be anyone but myself, even for one day. But now based from this new perspective that was maybe always there under the surface, but now is backed up by, a few letters after my name, a spotlight page, and an unfortunate amount of debt. And so, in making that call and cancelling these subscriptions that I've been holding on to out of a sense of, I think, professional obligation, I was subconsciously saying to myself, let go. It's okay. We're in a new place now. And so just like the podcast foretold, there was a release and that made the tears flow. Maybe it was a kind of grief, I suppose. I mean, I'm in my mid-30s, so I'm constantly thinking about whether or not I've used my time wisely. So perhaps I'm grieving a period of time that my brain currently considers wasted chasing something that was not true to myself. But in hindsight, in the future, maybe I'll consider it all part of the journey. And honestly, it was just a relief to have made a good decision and stepped forward. That's nice. At least the tears have stopped now. God, if that's what I'm like cancelling Apple TV Plus, imagine what I'm going to be like when I get rid of those iPhone boxes I've been keeping for about 15 years. I'll be fucking horizontal for a week.